Hey kiddo, Thanksgiving at my place?
My father and I have always had an estranged relationship, ever since my mom passed away. After my aunt got full custody of me, he just seemed to sort of disappear. No one ever told me why, but I wasn't allowed to meet with him under any circumstances. However, once I turned 18, I received a text from him, inviting me to Thanksgiving. My aunt kept telling me it was a bad idea, but I didn't listen. We decided that it was best to have dinner at his house, since it was cheaper than going out to a restaurant. I wasn't sure what I expected, but for some reason, a feeling of dread overcame me the night before. It wasn't strong enough to make me want to cancel, but it reminded me that there was probably a good reason on why my aunt didn't want me to hang around him. The next day, I got ready, then drove out to the address he gave me. I noticed that he didn't live in a normal suburban neighborhood, but more like a cabin in the woods. When I knocked on the door, he didn't open it. Instead, in the doorway was the most horrifying woman I had ever seen. Everything about her gave me the creeps, and she completely towered over me. Her face seemed sort of familiar, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. When she let me in, I made sure to make it known that I didn't know my father was bringing someone else to join us. He introduced her as his new wife, and by new, I mean like 1 month new. They hadn't been together for long at all. That made me worried that she just married him for his money. But judging by the state of their home, I just sort of assumed he wasn't well off anyways. The dinner wasn't finished by the time I arrived, so they just let me look around the house as they prepared the rest of our meal. On the walls, I noticed there were some framed photos of the two of them. At first, I thought it was sweet, until I saw an unsettling photo, sitting on top of a coffee table. It was a photo of his new wife, and a separate picture of me cut out and taped next to her. First of all, there was no reasonable way for her to get this photo, since my dad and I were in contact for over 13 years. Second of all, what kind of psychopath tapes a photo of their stepdaughter who they'd never met next to them? That's when they called for me, since dinner was ready. I took one last look at it, before returning to the dining room. Luckily, the food looked really good. Even though there was only 3 of us, it looked like enough to feed 2 families. My dad was silent, but it wasn't unusual for him since he's a naturally pretty quiet guy. However, his new wife was unexpectedly chatty. She asked me all about my personal life, including what school I attended, if I was seeing anyone, things like that. It was honestly a bit awkward and made me uneasy. When I thought back to the image of us together, it seemed like she was trying a little too hard to be close with me. I still tried to keep the conversation peaceful, because I didn't want to make it obvious that I was uncomfortable, since I didn't want to ruin dinner. But suddenly, the grandfather clock in the hallway started to go off. My dad's new wife's smile started to fade, and my father suddenly excused himself. Silence fell upon the room as he got up and went back into the kitchen. Now it was just his new wife and I alone at the table. Once we heard a door shut, his wife grabbed me by my hand and told me to come with her. At first I tried to fight back, but she had an unexpectedly strong grip. She dragged me up the stairs and covered my mouth to keep me from screaming. When she let me go, we were in an empty room, and I felt my heart rate quicken when she locked the door. When she looked back at me, her eyes suddenly looked exhausted. With her hands shaking, she told me we need to leave as quickly as possible. I just sat there sort of dumbfounded. When I asked her to explain, she gripped my shoulders, looked me straight on, and said she has no idea who the man downstairs is. I paused and asked her to repeat what she just said. She told me she'd been stuck here for over a month, and they were so deep into the forest that she couldn't escape. Silence fell upon the room as I tried to take it all in. That's when I realized his wife wasn't the bad guy here. It was him. I slowly and quietly opened the door, then we tiptoed down the stairs together. When we got beyond the staircase, my father was waiting for us at the table again. He got up and started to approach us, so the woman just grabbed my hand, and we made a run for the car. When we finally made it, he just quietly followed us without having any sort of reaction to our panicked faces. I watched him through the front window as he stood there. After the engine was ready, I backed out the driveway, and we drove off. I looked into the rearview mirror to see if he had moved, but he didn't. All he did was smile and wave. I couldn't process what was going through his mind. What was the point of this whole mess? It seemed straight out of a horror movie, except there was no ending. As I continued driving, my aunt called me. My phone was hooked up to the car, so it automatically went to speaker. She asked me how my trip to the psych ward went. The woman and I looked at each other, and I asked her what she meant. My aunt seemed confused, and told me my dad was in a mental institution for having delusions. Somehow he escaped, and mistook that woman as my late mother. When I reported it, they sent people out into the cabin, but didn't find him. Knowing that he was still out there made it hard for me to sleep at night. It made me dread every Thanksgiving, because I would always get the same message from him, without fail.
Hey kiddo, Thanksgiving at my place?